Welcome to the business of being healthy, where we are passionate about treating our health as good as we treat our wealth. Sheley Brien here, and I am obsessed with sharing real life experiences and wisdom to help save you time, heartache, and money as you continue to grow personally and professionally. Twice a week, we push aside that BS to take massive intentional action. And I promise by tuning in, you will receive the straightforward talk you've been waiting for, filled with actionable steps that will inspire you to achieve the health and wealth you desire while you are building your empire. Welcome back to the show. I am really just ready for today's episode because if you are like me and potentially a right fighter, right? Someone that definitely wants to stick up for everybody or stick up for what is right, and you find yourself in that situation more often than not, this one is for you, my friend. So stay tuned. But before I dive in, I have to tell you. So number one, I always call out reviews on my solo episodes. I love this because you know what? You invested the time into the show, into this community to leave a review. I am calling you out by name. So make sure that you pop over, drop a review. If you're on Apple, drop a quick review. If you are on Spotify, wherever you are, leave that 5-star review, drop a quick sentence, and you could literally help someone else find the show. And it means the absolute world to me. So today's review comes from Lindsay QS, and it says, extremely informative. Thank you for sharing your story today. So when I say it's easy to leave us a review, guys, it's easy. Lindsay, thank you so much. It doesn't have to be a book. Just that one little sentence meant the world to me. It says that we are on the path to something great. So let's turn it back now into today's topic. Because this one, I just feel like I know that this group is high achievers. I know that we are out doing great things. And sometimes there could be people in the way or situations in the way that try to block us. And I know for me, this is something as a recovering right fighter. And it's like RIGHT. Like I am trying to do the right thing. I will stand up for the right thing. Right? High integrity, high values. This one, I really had to take to heart. And I got to tell you, it has provided me so much freedom, what I'm about to share today, so much freedom, so much peace, and just like almost laughable joy. Now, when those situations sneak up, I just move on. Now, let me share where this, the title of this episode comes from, but what this is all about. And I know that there is a big push right now. I totally back it. That being said, I do feel like, so when I say like this total push, it's like, yay, women, go women, all women. And I am all about that. But there are some amazing men. And when you see some of the things, how they react in certain situations, I love watching and seeing the differences. Is it saying, am I in any way saying today, like you should be more masculine? Absolutely not. But is there some mindset? Is there some mental processes that men do that women may be struggling? And listen, that's a pretty big question to throw out there, rhetorical question, but it's something I struggled with. So I gotta believe I'm not alone in this community. So Chris is so great. If you've just new to tuning in, Chris is my husband. We've been married nearly 19 years, together 24. And he is my business partner with our construction company. And one of the things, he knows I'm a right fighter. And it's so funny because I'll come to him and I'll be like, can you believe they did this? How did this happen? I'm going to do this. I'm going to write this scathing email. I'm going to push back and make it right. All of this. And he looks at me, and only my husband could do this. He looks at me and he goes, or you could just move on with your life. And I hope you're smiling right now. If you're watching on YouTube, you see I'm smiling because just even saying that, I can like feel the pressure lifting off my shoulders. And the reason why I'm bringing this up on today's episode is because this has happened so much this year. And I feel like when you're in this strong projection of growth, things are changing, you are evolving, and maybe those around you aren't. And I talk about this on social media. About your inner circle, and it could even be family. I mean, it's tough. But I wanted to share a little bit of context around the I just moved on. I just shared where I got it from, a couple examples of how I've used it, and then kind of like my 3-step process when these situations in life, business, life, family, whatever, come up, how I process it in hopes that it helps you process it quickly too and provides the same freedom and peace that it does me. So the first one I want to share, and this was actually, literally, it happens everywhere where, something happened with my son at school and he was accused of something. Meanwhile, it was just immediately, he was the wrong one. And I'm not saying he's a saint. Okay. He's not like the perfect prodigal child of mine. Of course, he's human. He's going to make mistakes. But I asked some more questions because I am immediately, I was like, what? I can't believe this. I'm going to write the district. I'm going to handle this. We are going to do this. We are going to go, like all these different things worked up. Right. And plus, like mama bear protecting her child, of course. But I started asking more questions. I started understanding what was going on. And I was discussing it with Chris, and he just smiled. And I'm like, or I could just move on with my life. And it turned it back to me, what I can control. You've heard this theme before. If you've tuned in to this podcast, it turned it back to me. And we as parents had conversation with Jax. We understood the situation better. I did nothing. I just moved on with my life. Now, another example, this just happened like last week, is that someone that I used to do business with, someone that I participate in a sport that I do with. I'm trying not to name any names. I compete with horses, made a comment on something on my social media. Like if you're watching on YouTube, I'm raising my hand because I know you have too, those crappy comments that you get, right? But this is someone that knows me well. And they made a really crappy like comment in a DM. And it was truly to poke the bear. And I was like, I cannot believe the nerve of this person. I started like getting all upset, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to respond like this, right? Immediately, I'm like, oh, I'm going to right fight this. Like, oh, this is what I know is going on. How is that? Like, I had this whole thing planned out in my head. And Chris so lovingly looked at me and said, or you could just move on with your life. And immediately I was like, well, that's a better choice. Because listen, what good does it do? There are times when it is all about right fighting. And I'm not saying giving that up. But could that feeling of going on and getting upset and getting worked up and trying to correct something that really is not yours to correct, and just moving on with your life? I didn't respond to the DM. I didn't do anything. I moved on. And guess what? That person left me alone. And that was it. And so you can look at this a lot of different ways. This happens in business, right? Everyone, especially in construction, there's a lot of finger pointing. And instead, we just handle what we can handle, be transparent in our communication, and move forward. It does no good going back and forth. And I just literally cannot tell you, try this. I'm going to give you the 3 steps, but I want you to try this because it is like, I just say it and it's almost a joke because Chris is like, and I just moved on with my life. And I'm like, oh, fuck, that sounds great. I'm just going to do that. And so I just want you to feel that peace too. I want you to not waste that energy or time on fighting something that is just not worth it. So my 3-step process, because I literally go through, like I just shared, I literally go through this still. So I'm like a recovering right fighter still. This is a process. I have been able to recognize it now and I've gotten much better. But what I do is the first thing is just recognizing that I am a right fighter, like owning it, reflecting on it. Do I put too much time into these emails? Do I put too much effort and, weight on this conversation? Recognizing that you are that right fighter, recognizing that you get elevated emotions when you get triggered in certain things. And then understand the difference. You have to make this line in the sand for yourself on when to use that behavior of being a right fighter and when to not. Because like I said, it is a great skill that you do not want to let go. However, it can become overbearing and leak into areas where it is not a valuable behavior. So step 1 was recognizing, yes, I am owning it, reflecting it. 2, understand, where is that line in the sand for you? Where is that boundary that you are going to set? And then literally asking yourself, do I stand up or do I just move on with my life? And sometimes it's even like comical. I like to think of the movie Shang-Chi. If you've never seen that Marvel movie, there's always like a joke. They're always like, oh, we could go be serious, the 2 main characters. So like we could go, go home, get a good night's sleep before we go, to our job, our early job in the morning after they worked a long day or had an adventure. And then they like look at each other and they're like, or, and then they go out karaokeing and partying. It's like we all have that choice on what we want to do. And so I think about that movie scene. I think about Chris all the time being like, or you could just move on with your life. And so I'm sure right now you might be smiling and you might be thinking of a few times that you were right fighting and it only made you feel worse. Listen, last thing I want you to do is ever beat yourself up. That was a lesson. Understand now that you have a choice. You now have these 3 steps that you can turn back to next time it happens. Because guess what? If you're in business, if you're striving in your career, just doing dang life, it's coming. It's coming when you're going to be put in these situations. And there are people, as you're growing and as you're evolving as the future version of yourself, there's going to be people that don't like it and they're going to poke at you. And you got to be ready. You want to fight? Or do you just want to move on with your life? Now, it's so funny because in sharing this, I still think, that there could be something like more behind this, right? Like, why am I getting triggered? We could go into like this really kind of psychological understanding. I'm going to save that for another episode with an expert that I can bring on. That being said, if you are just willing to move through this right now and get that peace and freedom, this 3-step process will change everything. And it might even help tuning in on YouTube so you can see. I mean, like literally, I will say it right now, or you can just move on with your life. I should do a reel with that. I might do that. So that way you can just save it because quite honestly, it is so much better when you do. And this is something, as we change behaviors, it's got to be a conscious decision. But as soon as you start recognizing it, that step 1, it becomes easier and easier. And so you might right now be thinking of a situation where you're like, dang, I wish I had just moved on with my life and didn't fire off the email or retort back on a comment or a DM or, succumb to the pressure and what have you, trying to fix something that wasn't yours to be fixed. And if it is, I want you to just smile because that was a great lesson. Be grateful for it. Now you have this tool that next time it comes up, you can go through it. And if you do have like a moment that you're thinking of that you're like, dang, I wish I would have just moved on with my life at a certain trigger, shoot me a DM. I'd love to hear. You can just shoot me the word trigger and I'll be like, or trigger or move. And I'll be like, hell yeah, I will give you a virtual high five and I will know that this episode resonated with you. Now, as I close out here, I have to tell you guys, there are some very exciting things coming with the show. I have been alluding to this coming out again and again, but it's finally here. So make sure that you hit subscribe on whichever podcast platform you are on. If I'd love for you to go over to YouTube. I'm going to be doing some really fun and cool things there. I'd love for you to subscribe to that community and connect there because you're going to get a different bit than on other social medias. And if we aren't already connected on Instagram and LinkedIn, make sure that we are there because I just want to connect with like-minded people that are willing to do the work, take massive action, and truly just like go crush it in whatever that means to you. So until next time, we'll see you then.